or one of the childcare licensing specialists with DSS. And so my experience, I've been in the field for over 20 years. I've had numerous positions, being from infant toddler teacher, preschool teacher, and then I had founded a preschool daycare in Florida and was the director over that program for about 6, 7 years. And then I went into doing mentorship, trainings, and things like that at a program or a business, I guess I should say, similar to ECC, but it was in Florida. And then I moved to South Dakota about 8 years ago now. My husband and I traded the sand for snow. And so some people might think we're crazy, but we absolutely love it here. And so since I've been here in Rapid City, I've had a position with Head Start, being a teacher, as well as, I've worked with ECC before until my current position. So I'm excited to be with you tonight. And so I guess I'll turn it back over to Rose.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. We're excited for you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Miss Ashleigh, it's on to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashleigh Young. I am the Family Outreach Specialist here with Early Childhood Connections. For the most part, my professional background is a lot of case management, a lot of resource navigation. I've worked with a ton of different populations, from children to individuals with development delays, adults in recovery, even elderly. So I've worked with a lot of different demographics and socioeconomic status. Really, my passion for working with people stems from connecting with others and helping them navigate life's challenges with a sense of support that maybe they may not have in their natural network. So it's really just, for me, all about helping others feel empowered and feel heard, because in today's society, I recognize that we don't always get that validation. So that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that led me into this role. My educational background, I do have a bachelor's in psych and sociology. And really, again, my professional background has been built on a sense of advocacy. So that's a little bit different than program management just in general, but I guess the reason we felt that it was connected is because when it comes to running successful businesses, there's really a sense of personal connection that becomes important, and that's something we'll talk about later on. Um, Me personally, I do have two kiddos at home, a 3-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy, and they keep me on my toes, to say the least. So very familiar with the family dynamic, family challenges that come along with that. So that's kind of where my history comes from.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashleigh. We're excited for you to speak on it too. So, um, to jump right in, this quote I thought would kind of really hit the nail on the head. Leadership is fundamentally about people, and people are messy creatures, right? There is no one size fits all. We're not all going to fit in the same box. So how are we going to be able to reach all of our staff, all of our families, right? We have to be able to adjust our approach and have a good knowledge and a good foundation to do so. So this topic, program management, it touches every corner of early childhood education. So we manage the programs, and we're facing staffing challenges, right? I don't know a program that doesn't have to deal with that. Emotional strain, and then systemic pressure as well. So these are not abstract problems. They show up every day in our classrooms, our staff meetings, and then in the children and families that we provide the care for, like Ashleigh said. So program management is not just those checklists and compliance, it's about the people that we are providing this service for. And that relationship and connection factor is really where we want to approach tonight, through that lens, because we always stress, especially us at ECC, that with the children that you serve, we're all about the pyramid model, right? That you need to have that firm base with those really strong, authentic relationships with the children, because you're not going to be able to achieve any learning, any successful days, and you're going to have more behaviors, right? If you don't have that. What I think happens is that we preach this to the children in our care, but we sometimes forget that it also is applicable to the staff or the adults. We can't expect to get 100% investment from them and to have the most high quality, top-notch center or facility if we don't have those intentional connections at the base of our pyramid within that as well. So just so that you understand kind of the lens and the approach that both of these ladies are going to be looking at it tonight, that's how we're going to look at it. We're going to keep coming back to what matters in this, and that's equity, inclusion, and professionalism. So effective leadership is about advocacy, speaking for your people, modeling care and integrity, and creating that workplace where everyone can thrive. So as we move through tonight's session, I invite you to reflect, share honestly, and think about ways in which you can strengthen your leadership practices, support your team, and sustain your own well-being, because we know you guys are doing the hardest job there is, and I can absolutely empathize with that. So we'll get started into it. So the importance of successful program management, I think I kind of already gave a good summary of that, is that that pyramid, to be strong, is that it's going to rely on you creating that firm base. So we just have to really pour into that. And we have some great experts tonight. They're going to talk about 8 different principles and practical applications for you to put this immediately, hopefully, into your facility. So tonight, to start us off, we're going to start with Ashleigh, and today is going to be a little bit different than it has been in the past. We're going to bounce back and forth. So each expert is going to have a different talking point, and we'll bounce back and forth between the two of them. So Ashleigh is going to lead us off, though.
Great. So we kind of discussed what we felt like some of the predominant characteristics for successful program management were. And one kind of concept that I felt was really important, especially in fields that are largely human service led fields, such as childcare and even nursing, things where you work with people one-on-one, is that it's visionary and relationship focused. And what that means is that it's really value driven. So we talked about the inclusion, we talked about integrity. These are values that need to be seen in how you conduct job duties, the communications with your colleagues, communications with the families on a daily basis. Not only that, but also setting a clear vision and really investing in strong relationships with your staff, again, with those children and with the families. This is because relationship-focused leadership really fosters a sense of trust and belonging, which leads to better team cohesion. People that feel part of a team and are valued parts of the team significantly help the effectiveness of the organization, but also the overall culture. And that's something that we felt was really, really important for early childhood education specifically. So, Rose, next slide. What that looks like for effective relationship-based leadership is that you have really good communication. And one thing that we know about communication is strong communication really requires that connection. So having a leader or a director who really prioritizes those relationships first typically are better equipped to navigate not only sensitive topics, but any conflict resolution with empathy, care, and compassion. Just overall, it's a lot easier to work through challenges and concerns when you have a really strong foundation of a relationship with your staff and even with parents. We can see that in those relationships too. Not only that, but like I had mentioned, successful program management really is grounded in that sense of collaboration rather than command. And what that means is having everyone that has a hand within the program, whether it's again your staff or whether it's the families, have a sense of contribution that makes up the overall efficacy and efficiency of the overall organization. So really empowering others to feel connected to the mission is kind of what the point is here. All right. Next slide. So some strategies to really help build a relationship focused leadership. And these are just some basic things that you guys can do. But as directors and even staff members, building up their kind of sense of responsibility to this too, but having frequent check-ins, just connecting with your staff on a more personal basis, not just asking, hey, how's it going? You know, living the dream, that very basic level dialogue, but genuinely asking, hey, how are you doing? Or noticing changes in behavior. Things like that can really go a long way in connecting with one another. Then you have active listening, which I always emphasize that active listening is really listening to understand rather than to respond. And just what that means is understanding the person's point of view, regardless if you agree with it or disagree, just understanding where they're coming from is the ultimate goal with active listening. Then also working on building trust through consistency, reliability, and accountability. Practicing what you preach as a director and as a staff member too. You know, if when we talk about showing up on time, making sure that the director is following those expectations too. And that brings us to the last point of modeling expectations. So if you have certain policies, procedures, not just telling others to follow those, but really practicing and modeling what that looks like too. That overall just helps build reliability and consistency. And if you recognize that you mess up or somebody calls you out on something, own up to it. We're human beings, right? Not everyone is perfect and we're going to make mistakes. So being transparent and self-accountable with that is a huge, huge benefit in that relationship focused leadership.
Okay. Thank you, Ashleigh. So moving on to principle or practice number 2, we're going to turn it over to Andrea.
All right. So now we're going to build upon what Ashleigh was talking about with that visionary and relationship focused leadership. We're looking into leadership that honors autonomy and fit. So you may have heard the verbiage before, goodness of fit. So this evening we're going to look at goodness of fit in the context of leadership. It generally refers to the effectiveness of aligning leadership styles, strategies, and approaches with the specific needs and characteristics of a team or the organization. So as you know, in program management, it's important to know how to be effective in leading others. Your program is only going to be as successful as the people who work for you want to be. So it's crucial as their leader to learn how to lead with autonomy. Autonomy is giving the people you lead freedom to lead and make choices. That's why, it's so important for your employees to have buy-in into the vision and the mission of your program. Leadership that supports autonomy, it understands that there's not just one type of leadership style that's going to fit all people. We know in childcare, working with children, there's just not one type of teaching style that resonates with all children. And it's the same with the individuals that you lead. So there are many different types of leadership styles. You can Google it and you will find so many leadership styles that are out there. But for tonight's training, we're going to focus on some leadership styles that I have seen in the childcare profession. And the first one we're going to talk about is servant leadership. So this is where you prioritize the well-being of staff and children. You're fostering a supportive and nurturing environment. You are actively listening to team members. You're providing resources and support and encouraging that professional growth. With this type of leadership, you are not micromanaging, okay? So you're given some freedom there. The benefit with servant leadership, it creates a positive and it motivates just a positive work environment. So it fosters also trust and collaboration. Instructional leadership, that's setting clear expectations. You're establishing best practices and providing guidance to staff. You're developing curriculum, providing professional development, and ensuring quality instruction. The benefit with the instructional leadership is it improves teaching quality and supports staff development and enhances children's progress. Then we're going to look at transformational leadership. This is inspiring and motivating your team members to achieve a shared vision. You are communicating clear and compelling vision. You're setting your high standards for your program. You're fostering a sense of purpose. The benefit with this type of leadership style is that it increases employee engagement, their innovation, and more productive work environments. With this type of leadership style, you will see employees buy in. You will have those invested leaders. And then we have collaborative leadership. That's fostering a sense of shared ownership and teamwork just among the staff. You are encouraging open communication. You're involving staff in decision making, and you're building a strong team culture. The benefit with collaborative leadership is that it increases morale. There's improved communication, and there's more of a cohesive work environment. Then you may have heard of this leadership style before. It's called laissez-faire leadership. This is where you're empowering just your employees to make their own decisions and manage their own work. You are providing minimum direction. You're allowing staff to take an initiative, and you're trusting them to complete the tasks that you've given them. Again, there's no micromanaging with the laissez-faire type of leadership. The benefit to this type of leadership style is it fosters autonomy and independence, allowing staff to develop their skills and take ownership of their work. However, you do have to be careful with laissez-faire leadership because there is, a drawback. It can lead to a lack of structure and direction, especially if it's not used appropriately. So you still need to make sure, if you have this type of leadership style, it's great because you're empowering, your staff to make decisions on their own and take responsibility. But you also just want to make sure that the employees are making decisions that align with your program and the structure that you have put in place for your program, as well as the mission. And then the last type of leadership style that we're going to talk about is democratic leadership. This is encouraging participation and input from team members in decision making. You are gathering input from staff, considering diverse perspectives, and making decisions collaboratively. Some benefits with this type of leadership is it increases employee engagement, motivation, and a sense of ownership in decisions. I'm sure that as I was talking about these different types of leadership styles, you could see yourself and, a little bit maybe in each of these leadership styles. And you need to know the leadership style that you have, but you also need to understand that it's important to be flexible and able to adapt to situations that might need a different leadership style. Because again, not everyone's going to resonate with the same type of leadership style. So you will have a leadership style that is more dominant than others. However, over time and years of experience, your dominant leadership style can change. I know 19 years ago, when I became a new child care director, my dominant leadership style was instructional. I was busy setting those clear expectations, establishing the best practices that we would use in our program, and just guiding staff, lots of guiding staff. I often would state that leading adults is a lot harder than leading the children. And so over the 6 years of being a director, I had seen where my dominant leadership style, it changed more into that servant leadership. I was consistently, prioritizing the well-being of my staff, and the children in the program, constantly thinking how to provide a supportive and nurturing environments for them. So I just wanted to reiterate that leadership that supports autonomy and goodness of fit, it will learn how to adapt their leadership style to people they lead. Okay. So also it's crucial that you get to know the leadership style of each of your employees. The better you know them, the better you can lead them. So on the next slide, I'm going to give you 6 applications to help develop leadership that honors autonomy and fit. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be aware. As the program management, you should be aware of what is happening in the program. So you want to be aware of situations that that might need your guidance, as well as big situations that your staff are handling. You don't have to micromanage, but it is important as a leadership for you to be aware of those things that are happening in the program where nothing is going to blindside you. Then you want to accept feedback. And Ashleigh had mentioned that about, being able to accept feedback from the people around you earlier. She had mentioned that briefly. So again, you want to accept feedback. As program management, you will need to learn how to accept feedback and at times constructive criticism to help you grow as a leader. I have found as a director that it was hard sometimes to swallow the hard truth. It was hard at times, but when you do, the reward and the growth is worth the pain. So hearing that constructive criticism and knowing how to take it and knowing how to grow from it is very crucial in being a leader. Plus, your employees will see they can trust coming to you. They'll see that you're just human. We make mistakes, and that's okay. Even as leadership, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But own up to it, like Ashleigh had mentioned. Then you're going to communicate effectively. Communicate. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here at this moment on this topic, because I know both Ashleigh and I will cover this with another point that we are making this evening. But communicate. You want to demonstrate respect. So you don't always have to agree with everything that your employees say or everything that they do, but you should respect them. Value employees, consider their feelings, and consider that they might be what they might be going through, or where they are coming from in their perspective. And then you want to foster relationship building. This involves knowing your staff, the parents, and children. Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you do this by fostering relationship building. This takes time and being intentional. Nothing good ever just happens by happenstance. Usually you're being intentional on what you're doing, and it's the same thing with building those healthy relationships. You're being intentional. You can get really creative in relationship building, or it could be just as simple as getting together after work and maybe having a meal together. But you want to build those relationships. Then you want to live with integrity. I have found in program management, and quite frankly, just in life, that the best way just to live is with integrity. Doing the opposite than what you preach, it will ruin your credibility quickly. So show your staff that you can be trusted and reliable in leading them. In return, you are leading with autonomy and goodness of fit.
Love it. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're welcome.
now we're going to bounce back over to Ashleigh for principle number 3.
Hey, so for principle number 3, we've reflected on this kind of a lot already, or we've nodded to this already. So this will really just be a recap of some of the elements that we've talked about. But effective communication across all levels is something that's critical to program success. So that just means having clear, consistent, and respectful communication from the families all the way up to the directors. Cultivating a culture of transparency and, again, accountability, like we've talked about. Overall, leaders should really model how to communicate these expectations while also creating just a safe space for questions, feedback, and that collaboration. The hard part about communication is it has to be a give and receive relationship in order for it to be effective. There's just as much responsibility on the receiver's end as there is on the sender's end when it comes to effective communication. So on the next slide, we talk about how effective communication is really essential for personal and interpersonal success. What this means is, think about the relationships that you have with your colleagues and with your supervisors, or vice versa with your employees. Being able to articulate what issues or concerns you might notice are really essential for being able to uphold the overall efficiency and success of the program. As a director, you want to be able to connect with your employees and redirect situations that may not be favorable, but not in a way that tears down your employees, because we really want to cultivate a space where employees are, again, empowered and built up in the work that they do. So it takes a little bit of strategy and just like self-awareness on how to address certain topics to really build up employees in a way that you still resolve maybe the situation or concern, but in a productive way that's empowering, and again builds up that sense of belonging with your staff members. This is also true for the families, of the kids in your programs too. Being able to go to a parent to express a concern with a child really takes a different lens when you have a rapport with that family versus just reaching out just based on the concerns. It's a lot easier, again, to take a concern when you have that built relationship with the family, and knowing that you truly have an investment in their overall care and well-being, and it's not just another person that's there in the program. So having that relationship across all levels is really necessary to build an overall healthy environment within your programs. This is also true for interpersonal success too, because it just goes to show that being able to articulate what issues or concerns you have, whether as a director or maybe as an employee, and families too, being able to clearly and respectfully express those concerns in a way that meets the receiver where they're at too, and being mindful of how the presentation of it is, overall just creates a more productive and respectful environment, which is something that we really want to cultivate in human related or human service related fields. So, some different strategies, I guess, for having effective communication. This is one of my soapboxes, if you will. I'm really passionate about just the overall concept of communication and what it means to be an effective communicator, but just some basic things to really take into consideration that effective communication transcends far beyond just the spoken words between the sender and the receiver. Concepts like your tone, nonverbal indicators like your facial gestures, your hand gestures, and even your body posture, as well as the method by which you're communicating, whether that's written, verbal, or visual. They all convey different information. So taking a step back to really evaluate what your message is that you want to get across and how the receiver may interpret it before sending it can really help you cater that message to, that best of fit that Andrea was talking about earlier. So it's really important to adapt communication styles as a leader to the staff within your program, because that flexibility is important. Just like Andrea said, not all adults communicate the same way, just like kids. So being a little bit flexible and adaptable in that sense can really help you become, a more a leader with more intention, I guess. So again, be intentional and self-aware about how information may received when you're conveying it and gauge kind of what the best avenue is for that. Um, Ironically enough, tomorrow I'm actually doing a lunchtime learning session on effective communication. And that's something that I'm more than happy to present at different centers if that's a topic that you feel like your staff could really benefit from. I just recently did one at another center, and we had a great time talking about kind of the pros and cons of each communication style and what some of the drawbacks and barriers are, as well as just some really concrete strategies to help you be a more intentional and effective communicator.
Perfect. And I can speak from looking at Ashleigh's training. It's got a great wealth of information. So you can email us if you'd like to set up that training for your teachers. All right, we're going to pop back over to Andrea for point number 4.
All right. So communication is just a huge component in running a successful program. And I'm sure you all could say amen to that, right? So as Ashley has shared with us, there are many ways, verbal and nonverbal, to communicate to those that you lead. The crucial thing to remember about communication is that you can never over communicate. A common guideline that has just been known in marketing and communication, it suggests that a message needs to be presented 7 times before it's fully internalized. So 7 times. So again, communicate, communicate, communicate. So selectively sharing information, failing to keep people informed and telling people too late about matters important to their work only leads to distrust and suspicion. So I'm going to share with you 3 communication points that I feel, when I was a director, that it helped me in leading those that were around my staff. So number 1, be clear. This is as simple as this sounds. You want to avoid that jargon and technical terms. Avoid vague terms and be precise in your wording. Get straight to the point and avoid beating around the bush. I'm sure you can think of someone that, beats around the bush when they're talking and you're trying to follow them, but sometimes it's hard to follow. So you want to be clear. In program management, being direct will help you will help your message be clear. If you have to organize your thoughts before having a difficult conversation or a staff meeting that the topic is kind of hot, that's okay. Organize your thoughts before you address the situation. When setting program expectations, you want to be clear. You can't assume every employee will know how you want things to be done in your program. Please keep in mind please keep this in mind when you're hiring someone that comes from another childcare setting. Yes, it's great that they have experience. However, that does not mean that they will immediately know, what is expected in your program and what your expectations are. So we all know that not all programs run with the same expectations, and they can be different. So reviewing your program expectations should be should be done during onboarding an employee, not weeks after they start. So as the leadership of your program, it's your responsibility to make sure onboarding is completed and your clear expectations have been reviewed. Then you want to be timely. Nothing is worse, than getting new news when it's old. So do your best in making sure your employees have the information that they need, that they can make the decisions within their position. They would need to have that information. So be timely when responding to your employees. If they have questions or need support, have a system put in place on how you will respond to them. For example, do you document situations or time off requests, etc., or do you just do everything verbally? So if you don't have a policy in place, please get one. Effective programs management needs to have a system in place, and documentation should be occurring simply because, we all forget, and it's best just to document. When being timely, remember to keep everyone informed of changes to expectations. It's best to inform everyone at the same time and not one by one. We all know what happens when you inform one person and then maybe you forget to tell the others at the same time, or you are waiting to tell other people. That's when it's easy for information to get miscommunicated. You want to share information that employees need to know about as soon as possible. You have to be able to get information to the ears and to the eyes of those who need it when they need it. Don't procrastinate, be timely. And then you want to be relevant, and you want to be relevant with your expectations. And what I mean by this is you want to be current. You need to make sure you are reviewing your expectations and policies yearly. Don't give staff a handbook that you did in 2015, that you wrote, because more than likely, it's going to be outdated. And I know it's going to be outdated if you did have childcare licensing administrative rules in it, because those have been revised in 2023. So, but you want to be relevant. You want to make sure, your expectations are up to date and they reflect the way your program currently operates. Current employees, they don't care how you used to do things. They need to know what is expected now. Also, something to keep in mind with being relevant in your expectations is that sometimes, something that worked back in 2010 may not work now. Be flexible and able to adapt to make your program expectations relevant to where the early childcare profession currently is. You have to have those clear, specific, and communicated expectations. You will need to be visible, consistent, and provide support through coaching and feedback with your employees. The more you spend time with your employees, you will get a better understanding of how to best support them with the situations that they face.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. Agreed. All right, Ashleigh, on to point number 5.
All right. So, point number 5 is also a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and not just in staff, but in people just in general. So I felt that it was important to include supporting staff in crisis or under stress, just because as we all know, childcare just in general is a high stress field, right? So being able to be mindful not only of what you as directors might be going through, but also what your staff are going through as well, can help create a better sense and sense of community within the programs. So, especially in those programs that really face personal or professional challenges, we talk about the staffing challenges, but this can also be, situations like um, housing insecurities, food insecurities, transportation insecurities with your staff. Being a responsive leader that involves meeting the people where you are at and offering that empathy and that connection, not only to them as a person but knowing what's available in the community can really help build up the employees within your programs as well. This has multiple benefits, not only from just promoting that better sense of culture and climate within your organization, but also helping promote resilience and overall retention. So let's talk about some staffing challenges that you might see. Um, Challenges within your staff can oftentimes be attributed to symptoms of poverty. So, like we had talked about, housing insecurities, food insecurities, anything from sleep deprivation to burnout, which is something that Andrea is going to touch on here in just a moment. All of these indicators can lead to challenges with staffing. Some of the indicators that this might be exhibited as are changes in performance, um, like less productivity. You might see it rise in the as attendance issues. So maybe they're late frequently. Maybe you have frequent call-ins, things like that. This can also be as simple as a mood change. Somebody that goes from a very bubbly demeanor to maybe they're a little bit more standoffish and irritable. You can also notice this with social isolation and withdrawal. What's really interesting about crisis, just in general, is a lot of these indicators are the same indicators that we see in children with challenging behaviors. Oftentimes, if they're acting out or having some mood changes, performance issues, attendance issues, those are oftentimes linked to symptoms of crisis, especially with poverty. So being mindful of that can help make you more empathetic to understanding the challenges that the people within your program, whether it's your staff or whether it's the families that you serve, just being more empathetic to the challenges that they may be experiencing. So, let's talk about the importance of empathetic leadership. Within relationship-based leadership, empathy is, I would say, one of the driving values. And that's just because you're understanding at the core the person, not just the symptoms and, knowing that things are going on, but really understanding how it's impacting the individual that you work alongside. When the other benefit to this is when employees trust that their leader truly cares and has some kind of investment in them as an employee, and really cares about their overall well-being, a person is much more likely to remain engaged, communicate honestly and openly, and persevere through those challenges. If you have that pre-existing relationship prior to these challenges or barriers that might surface, it's a lot easier for staff to come to you and express what those challenges are rather than withdraw and isolate. So that alone really shows how empowering and powerful having a relationship focused leadership within the field can be, because again, people are difficult and we're challenging creatures, especially in today's society. So doing what you can to, have a sense of empathy and really connect versus correct, as kind of that first step to resolving issues and concerns, can really build a healthier and more cohesive environment.
Thank you, Ashley. So we have a case study activity. However, I don't think we're going to have time to engage in it tonight. So what I'm going to do is attach that as an email to all of you, and on your own leisure, you'll be able to look at it and kind of look and see how you would handle it, and maybe take some of the principles that the experts speak about tonight and apply them. So we're going to pop back over to Andrea and to point number 6.
Okay, so point number 6, addressing burnout and invisible work. This point is something that's near and dear to my heart. So we hear that term burnout thrown around loosely, when maybe coworkers or even ourselves feel tired from working so much, but burnout is real. It's something that we should talk about and address within the workplace. So back in 2021, I started having some medical symptoms to what I thought was related to my blood sugar levels, because diabetes runs in my family. And so I started feeling dizzy and just a little shaky and things. So I made an appointment and I went to my doctor for some blood work. After, receiving my results and talking to the doctor in depth about my symptoms and what was going on, she looked at me and she said, Andrea, your blood work came back great. What you have is a case of burnout. She said, normally, you have a stack of pancakes and you could pull, if you start to feel overwhelmed or stressed, you can pull a pancake out, your stack gets a little bit shorter and you'll be okay. She said, but your stack is just too big. Your stack is just too big. And she's like, your brain is currently giving you warning signs and you need to make some changes. And so you need to remove not just one pancake, you need to remove several pancakes from your stack. So she didn't have to tell me, that more than once. So I instantly went home. I talked to my husband, and over, several weeks, we had started praying about what I should do. And then I did it. And so I had made some changes, started delegating more things in my life, and started removing pancakes. So you can go to the next slide. Sorry. So burnout is an emotional, it's a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion, and it's caused by an extended or excessive amount of stress. The term burnout, it describes a situation when you're giving more than you're getting. I feel like any passionate person, who wants to see results will eventually experience burnout. If you don't learn how to balance that workload and those feelings. So you have to be on fire in order to burn out. So burnout is a long-term effect of misalignment. Burnout does not happen to the disengaged. As program management, you are juggling many hats and responsibilities. I get it. I remember the days of working 60 plus hours at the childcare program and endless amounts of paperwork. Who knew so much paperwork was involved in running a childcare? But I remember a friend telling me she was so surprised that so much went into overseeing a child care center. Remember, it's not a bad thing if you are feeling burnout. It's what you do when you are feeling burnout that matters. So also realize that if burnout can happen to you, then it can also happen to your employees. Burnout is not just for those in program management or higher level positions. If you recognize the signs of burnout in an employee, then it's time to have a talk, and see how you can help support them. And if you recognize the signs of burnout in you, then it's time to either talk to someone else in management, or talk to a trusted friend, a colleague, or get medical professional support. So some signs and symptoms of burnout is emotional exhaustion, feeling detached from work or life, Cynical attitude towards work or relationships. You may see someone start to be really just negative. Reduced productivity and motivation. Physical symptoms like fatigue, headaches, stomach problems. And like for me, I had started feeling dizzy. It was affecting me like that. Increased irritability and difficult concentrating. So some contributing factors is the workload, classroom stress. Workload might be more than one person can do alone. Classroom stress factors such as, consistently having those challenging behaviors, dealing with unruly parents, and I'm sure you can name a few more. Maybe you see a lack of support from the organization or supervisors or coworkers. Maybe you just don't feel supported, or your staff don't feel supported or appreciated. Maybe you go above and beyond and it's not recognized. You may see growth stagnation. You might have hit your limit within that organization, and there is not room for advancement. And you know that you have more to give. So you become stagnant, and then that's when burnout can happen. There might be a disconnection or unengaged. You might become disconnected to the mission or to your colleagues. You basically lose that drive that you once had. Or maybe there's just not enough time. You always feel behind, like you're a sinking ship. So I don't want to leave you with only the signs and symptoms and the contributing factors of burnouts, but let's look at some applications that you can apply to help you be resilient and bounce back. So it's important to give yourself some time to rest and rejuvenate, to remember your why, to remember what brings you joy about working in this profession. If you are feeling burnout, then I hope these resilient key pointers will help you bounce back. The first thing you want to do is you want to build a solid foundation. The first things first, you need to take care of yourself. Get enough sleep, eat a well balanced diet, exercise regularly, walk, hike, just move your body. Maybe that's turning on some music and dancing in your living room, but just get moving. Get involved with activities that give your life meaning. For me, it's like I started gardening, going fishing with my husband, just being involved in my church. So you find what that is for you. But have healthy habits, because that lays the groundwork to help you cope when the going gets tough. The second thing you want to do is develop supportive relationships. And remember, quality over quantity. We don't need to have a lot of friends, but when we invest emotionally, we get, good solid relationships. And you want to find those people that can surround you and help support you and give you that honest feedback. So good friends, they will sharpen you, not bring you down. The third thing you want to do is focus on what you can control. So even in the darkest times, there are things that you do that you can do to help you through the struggle. You would maybe read an inspirational book, journal, pray, meditate. Find those comfort in activities that are both good for you and bring you contentment. The fourth thing you want to do is, sorry, I need to speed it up some. So that you want to prioritize your mental health. Consistently working will affect your mental health. So you need to schedule time to do something fun and relaxing. Rose, we can go ahead and go to the next thing. Sorry.
Nope. We're going to cruise through these next couple of slides. And then I just wanted to give a heads up. When we do the resources and things that I normally mention, I'm going to actually pull those and we'll talk about them while you guys are doing the evaluation. That way we can still get to those things and you guys are not missing out on anything. So turning it over to Ashleigh now for point number 7.
Yeah, so fortunately, these last 2 points are really just some key takeaways of things that we've already really honed in on through this training. But this one talks about equity and inclusion through staff engagement. And at its core, basically what this means is fostering a culture where your employees have a sense of buy-in to the program and its overall mission. And then actively, taking the effort to really learn about each member's strengths and identities and their needs as well. So that way you can be the best director and leader that you can be. Um, at the end of the day, collaboration really drives innovation and efficiency by encouraging this sense of staff participation. Um, because that buy-in is really critical to the success of the agency. Just having one person that moves towards the overall mission is going to make it a long and excruciating process. So making sure that all of the team members have carry a sense of responsibility to that can help make the overall mission and success on a daily basis that much easier. Some benefits of being a leader who is invested in the staff. Creating professional development opportunities is critical to the success of not only the overall organization, but it carries many additional benefits. That's because you can maybe train to the specific needs of the organization. Professional development also gives a sense of responsibility and ownership to the staff members to learn about what interests them and what their niche is to fitting into that picture. It also increases engagement overall. You have higher retention rates by supporting personal and interpersonal growth. Staff moldability and the ability to, again, train to the needs of the organization can really help just make sure that all of those gaps are filled. And that overall increases productivity within the organization.
Okay, last point back over to Andrea.
Okay, so I'll try to be quick on this. So, as leaders of your program, you know that you set the tone for professionalism. There's a leadership guru, John Maxwell. You might have heard of him before, but he quotes, "Everything rises and falls on leadership." And it's true. When a program has good, solid leadership, I did not say perfect leadership, but because there's just no such thing as that, but good, solid leadership, then the employees are also thriving. So I want to leave you with the 4 languages of appreciation in the workplace. Because statistics show that 70% of people have left an organization due to lack of appreciation, and 66% of current employees report that they would quit if they felt unappreciated. So you may have heard of Gary Chapman. He wrote the 5 love languages. Well, he also, along with Paul White, he wrote the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And for tonight's training, we were just going to focus on the 4 of those languages, which is words of affirmation, that's verbally giving praise to the person for an achievement or an accomplishment. Quality time. So if time is precious, and with busy schedules, we don't always have that extra time to give. However, if you have a staff member that quality time is the way that they feel appreciated, then you need to make a time to spend some time with them, whether that's coaching them in an area, or having a meeting with them, or just offering a listening ear and support. Acts of service. True leadership requires a willingness to serve others. So some employee appreciation language is someone showing them just a helping hand. Having someone come in and help them with a child in a difficult child in a class, or helping them with some other task that they need help with. And then the 4th one was tangible gifts. Giving the right gift to a person who appreciates tangible rewards can send a powerful message of thanks, appreciation, and encouragement. Again, it can be, something just simple, something that is within your budget, something that you can do. It might be buying your staff a coffee drink if that's their language of appreciation. So just something simple like that. Go ahead, Rose.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to drop the evaluation link in the chat. Feel free to work on that while I pull up the remaining slides for Ashleigh, Andrea, and I to go over. That way you guys aren't missing out on anything, but we don't keep you too much longer. So let me copy. Okay, there is the link, and I will also share the QR code. Okay, either of those should work. And then we're going to jump back over. So the next steps in this are some of the resources you guys can use and how you can go forward with this. If you do not have a copy of the South Dakota CKC, I'm going to share my screen again. Hopefully that doesn't take you guys away from doing the evaluation. So this is just a book that really complements the South Dakota Early Learning Guidelines. Think of this as how you can lesson plan for yourself, how you can lesson plan for your teachers. So you are looking at where you are currently at and where you can go next. So this breaks it down into those different levels. This is a free document, like I said, so if you'd like this, please email me and I can get one sent out to you or drop off at your facility. There's also an online version, a PDF. I will be sharing that in a follow-up email with some of these resources that you'll be able to look at. A couple other things that we wanted to bring up were Director 360, and this is a partnership with DSS Licensing. So it would be Andrea here or Tina, whoever your licensor is, and then either Jesse here at ECC or myself. And we come in and help you work through all things it takes to be a leader. You're looking at DSS policies, how you can move towards quality, curriculum, environmental scale. So it runs the gamut on how you can have a very successful program. So something I wanted to touch on your own professional development and professional growth is we do have articulation agreements with several South Dakota universities. So if you have a CDA, this can be given credit for prior learning. So if you're interested in continuing your education and getting an associate's or a bachelor's, we currently have agreements with Northern State for an associate's in early childhood education. We have an agreement with SDSU, and then by this fall, we should also have agreements with Black Hills State and OLC, which are the western side of South Dakota. So then all that would happen is you would submit your CDA transcript that you got from either an online entity or ECC, and they're going to give you credits. Now it varies on the college, but it's anywhere from 9 to 12. So this is very beneficial and it puts you at a leg up. And if you want to continue your education and you have questions about this, please reach out to me and I can help you walk you through that process. Couple other resources. So like Andrea said, Gary Chapman's book, 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. I'm going to drop that. I think I dropped that actually in the initial email, a link to the Amazon to buy that. The website that Ashleigh pulled some great information from, and when I was perusing it, it really has some great like professional development opportunities and free webinars. So that link to that website was in that initial email as well. So hop on there. They have a lot of good free things. Some things cost money, so just navigate it carefully. The ECE Resource Hub, if you are not familiar with that, I will drop it in the chat. It's basically a collection of anything you would need to run a successful program. So when you built your CDA portfolio, you had to have a lot of those resources. This just expands upon it and gives you a lot more options from anywhere from policies to health and safety, examples maybe of an expulsion policy, different professional development ideas. So just lots of things there. You do have to create an account, but it's free. So there's the link there. And then the last one that I wanted to share with you guys is actually kind of Andrea's bread and butter. This is the DSS website. And this is just, they have a lot of the same forms and publications that they have here. But if you want to make sure that it's meeting your licensing standards and that there's no questions, pull it directly from them or get the idea and the verbiage, and then you can change it to match your own philosophical approach for your center. So those were the resources that I wanted to share at the end tonight. I don't think we're going to have time to jump into the pre-submitted questions. So these were a couple that I had just created because we didn't get any, but how do I motivate or engage an employee who lacks investment? I think we found some great tips from Ashleigh and Andrea throughout. Hopefully you guys saw how making that connection and relationship is really your biggest key takeaway there. Conflict resolution doesn't come easy to me. How can I work through issues, concerns with staff when it isn't something I'm comfortable doing? I would suggest you sign up for Ashleigh's class tomorrow if she's still taking registrants, but or try and see when that's on the calendar next. Anything about finding your own communication style and being able to meet everyone where they're at. So, um, like I said, we won't have time for the case study, so I will copy and paste that along with the other resources. So just for closing, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He's the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. So we opened up with talking about people are messy creatures, right? We have to meet each individual where they're at. We have to have such a great grasp of where everyone is at and how we can pour into them individually. But that's what your role is. You are the leader, and that's how you're going to get them to do these amazing things. And your amazing thing is getting them to do the amazing thing. So I just want to say and take a moment that we recognize something that often goes unsaid and shouldn't go unsaid, shouldn't go unnoticed, and that's that we see you. We see the early mornings and the late nights, the hard conversations and the hopeful ones, the way you hold space for children, families, and staff, even when you are stretched thin. We see the invisible work that you're doing, the emotional labor, the steady leadership that you bring to the chaotic days. And we want you to know that it matters, that we see you. In a field that is so often under-recognized, undervalued, and under-resourced, your presence and persistence, it's remarkable. You are the backbone of your programs and the heartbeat of your communities. We are trying to make stakeholders see that. We want to see that everything you pour into these children and your families is what makes this community operate. So you lead not with skill, but with your heart. So I hope that you take away that we see what you're doing and we just want to help you be the best that you can be and continue to pour into the people and the families that you support because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So how are you going to continue to do that? So thank you for showing up tonight and showing up every day for everyone that you provide support for. You're very much appreciated by everyone here at ECC. To end, I want to thank our amazing experts, Ashleigh and Andrea. Do you guys have any quick closing comments?
We needed more time.
Absolutely. And that Andrea brings up a really great point. Our next series, which will be starting in July, is going to be an hour and a half. So overwhelmingly, we got feedback from attendees on these Evening with the Experts that they wanted more time. So we bumped it to an hour and a half. That's going to get published here in the next week. But I will tell you our first Evening with the Expert is one that's going to be great. It is the Child Find Coordinator for Rapid City Area School District. So she works exclusively with identifying those early intervention methods and what students need to be successful. So she's going to walk us through with Kayla Herbner on what you can do as an early childhood provider, what you can do to advocate for those children. So, Ashleigh, you have anything?
No, just wanted to reflect on kind of what you said too, Rose, and thank everybody for joining us tonight, and a sincere thank you for the work that you do. Early childhood education is not a field for the weak, and you guys are doing amazing and great things, even on the days that it doesn't feel like it. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for continuing to show up every day.
Agreed. All right. Well, if you finish the evaluation, you are free to go and